Tonight on Primetime Politics, recognizing Palestine.
We're under no illusions that this is any sort of panacea.
Canada breaks tradition and recognizes a Palestinian state ahead of any peace agreement. Israel now accusing Canada of rewarding Hamas with this diplomatic move. Coming up, we'll get reaction from Canada's ambassador to the United Nations, Bob Rae. Also, the message behind the move. We'll speak to former ambassador to Israel Jon Allen about what Canada hopes to achieve by recognizing Palestine. And
we ranked a dismal 71st in the world for women's political representation.
What can be done to address the lack of women in politics? We'll examine the issue. This is Primetime Politics. Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Serapio. Prime Minister Mark Carney addressed the General Assembly of the United Nations this afternoon. Taking to the microphone, he explained the decision made yesterday to recognize a Palestinian state ahead of any peace deal. This breaks decades of Canadian foreign policy, Canada making that move yesterday along with the United Kingdom and Australia.
We take this action as part of a coordinated effort led by France and Saudi Arabia, a coordinated effort to provide the possibility of peace and a two-state solution. Recognizing the state of Palestine, led by the Palestinian Authority, empowers those who seek peaceful coexistence and the end of Hamas. It doesn't legitimize terrorism. And in no way does it compromise Canada's steadfast support for the State of Israel, its people, and their security, because that security can only be ultimately guaranteed through the achievement of a comprehensive two-state solution.
Well, with his thoughts on the issue, we are now joined by Bob Rae, Canada's ambassador to the United Nations. Ambassador Rae, good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Great pleasure. Good to see you, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Listen, I want to begin here with the reaction that we're seeing from the Israeli Prime Minister to Canada's recognition of Palestine. And this is what Benjamin Netanyahu said. This is translated. His was originally Hebrew. He says, "I have a clear message to those leaders who are recognizing a Palestinian state after the horrendous October 7 massacre. You are rewarding terror with an enormous prize." Again, that's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm wondering, has Canada essentially done that with this recognition, reward Hamas?
No, not at all. I couldn't disagree more strongly with the Prime Minister or with others who say the same thing. It's completely false, because Hamas is an extremist terrorist organization. It has been so labeled by Canada and described in our legislation. So the idea that somehow we're not aligned on that question is completely false. And the attack of the 7th of October was a terrible attack. But here we are, more than 2 years later, and we still don't have a resolution of the conflict. Tens of thousands of people have been killed in the war, most of them civilians, many women and children. There's widespread starvation, lack of food, whatever definitions you want to use, terrible things happening, huge problems with health, public health. The Israelis have blocked the distribution of aid from international organizations that have been doing this for a very long time. And there are really serious issues around what are exactly the intentions and the motivations of the current government of Israel. What is the plan? One of their members in their cabinet yesterday was talking about how they wanted to make Gaza uninhabitable, and they wanted to do the same thing with the West Bank. So there are serious issues. We've named two of their ministers, sanctioned them. This is not about punishing anybody. It's not about rewarding anybody. It's about recognizing the rights of both the Israelis and the Palestinians to a peace and just solution. It's about recognizing the dignity of everyone who's caught up in this terrible struggle, and not just their dignity, but their human rights, their political rights, and doing it under the rule of law, doing it clearly in a way that respects the interests of everyone and the long-term security interests. And so, I mean, I won't go on any longer except to say that I disagree with those who say this is about punishing somebody or this is about rewarding somebody. It's not. Hamas's vision is no one else's vision. We are marginalizing Hamas. We are doing more to do that, if I may say so, than the government of Israel has managed to do. And we're going to continue to do that. But I think it's important for us to be clear about what this is and what it is not.
Still, though,
for political reasons, some people may say this. What? Yeah?
Still, Ambassador, and sorry for jumping in. You know, one of the reasons that motivated Hamas to attack Israel was essentially to affect Israel's regional diplomacy. The Palestinian people, to your point, have paid a greater price, and that may have not been calculated by Hamas. But ultimately, Canada is changing its diplomatic stance by recognizing Palestine outside of an actual peace deal. So doesn't, as Prime Minister Netanyahu says, Hamas win here, because this was one of their goals, to disrupt Israeli diplomacy?
Well, if I have to disagree with you as well as with Prime Minister Netanyahu, I'm glad to do so. I don't think you could be more wrong. There's no rewarding going on here. There's no recognition of Hamas here. We're recognizing the Palestinian Authority, which has made it clear to us and to the British and to the French and to everyone else that they have no intention of allowing Hamas to participate in a government. So I think it's important to get the not only the facts straight, but also, you know, when Hamas and I know there's a speech on the internet where the guy says this is what we're looking for. I mean, this is not about him. He's done. I mean, Hamas is not going to be part of the reconstruction of Gaza. It's not going to be part of the reconstruction of the West Bank. It's not going to be part of a political solution to the problems of the Palestinian people. It is people who are committed to democracy and who are committed to a future in which both Israel and Palestine will be recognized as having rights and obligations to each other and to the world. That's the plan. That's what we're putting forward. It has to be based on some very tough-minded approaches to security and to how we make sure the guarantees are in place to allow that to happen. But the notion that any terrorist group is being rewarded is just completely wrong.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said tough-minded decisions. I wonder then, how will this affect Canada's relations with Israel?
Well, I think the relation with Israel has been a long one and will continue to be a long one. I think there are many, many people in Israel who understand that mutual recognition, I mean, that was the path that was taken in 1993 for a whole variety of reasons, which we could all go into. We have seen a terrible veering away from that strategy on both sides, but we have to get back to the basics. And to those people who say this is, you know, not the way to go, you say, well, what exactly is the way to go? Like, what are the alternatives here? You look at, is it one state? And if there's one state, who runs the state? What are the rights of the people? What are the rights of the Palestinian people in that state? If you say, well, it's one state, but all of the Palestinian and the Muslim population will be excluded and they'll be pushed out. You say, that's not tenable. That's against every rule of law or rule of reason or rule of fairness I can possibly imagine. And if you say, no, it'll be the other way, that the Israelis, the Jews will be asked to leave. That's not going to happen. We have to get back to the basics. There is a right of people to a homeland. There is a right of people to be in the place that they have historically been attached to for centuries. It so happens that in this situation, it's two peoples that insist that their rights are more important than the others. And we have to get to a state where we say, no, everyone's rights are important. Everyone's rights have to be taken into account. And everyone's security interests have to be taken into account. I think there are a lot of Israelis who agree with us. We'll continue to have the warmest of relations with people in Israel. We'll continue to have the strongest of relations with the Jewish community in Canada. And we need to maintain that dialogue and that understanding. No one's being excluded or being told that their views are not important. What we are saying is it isn't possible to have a serious conversation about the Israel-Palestine issue without recognizing that both sides have something at stake here. And if you come up with a solution that only has one interest at heart, then you've got a problem because it ignores the interests of the other. And we cannot afford to talk about a solution that doesn't take into account the interests of other people.
Mm-hmm. Now, it is the Carney government, in coordination with the UK and other allies, that's essentially making the decision to recognize Palestine. And I realize it does not necessarily have to, but should this have been debated in Parliament? You know, the Carney government is still a minority government. Historically, strategically, Canada has stood by Israel. So such a big decision, should that not have gone to Parliament first in a debate to recognize Palestine as a state?
Lots of opportunity. That's not for me. I used to be a member of Parliament, as you may remember, but I'm not going to get into that discussion. I mean, that's up to the government. I think there's a strong basis looking at, where Parliament is to suggest that the approach that we're taking would have a strong majority support in Parliament. And if anybody wants to test that, everybody knows there's ways of doing it. The one thing I would say to you where I disagreed with your question is that the suggestion that somehow we are not remaining in support of Israel is wrong. The notion somehow that in taking this position, we're in any way diminishing our support for the state of Israel is false. Our support for the state of Israel is strong and will remain very strong and will always be strong. All we're saying is it's no longer possible to have a discussion about that territory, that land, without recognizing that other people have rights too. And I think it's inconceivable that we would, having taken this decision, we would now go backwards. It isn't possible to go backwards. We must go forwards.
Ambassador Bob Rae, I always appreciate the time. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Michael. Good to talk to you. Take care.
You too. Well, let's continue our discussion now with Jon Allen from 2006 to 2010. He served as Canada's ambassador to Israel. Currently, he is Distinguished Senior Fellow at the Canadian International Council and a Senior Fellow at the Bill Graham Centre for Contemporary International History. Jon, thank you for making the time for us today.
My pleasure.
So listen, I'm going to get you to start off here by helping us understand what Canada is actually trying to do with this recognition. You know, diplomatically, what message does this move send to the world?
Well, let me just go back a little bit into the history. The history of recognition of Palestine was generally tied up with a negotiation with Israel. And when the negotiation for peace, end of conflict, was concluded, then it was thought that Western governments, Canada included, would recognize Palestine as a state. What has happened during the administration of Prime Minister Netanyahu is that it's become clear to Prime Minister Carney and to all Western leaders, and we don't have to intuit this. Prime Minister Netanyahu has said it. He has no intention of negotiating with the Palestinians, and he has no intention of allowing the formation of a Palestinian state. Now, a two-state solution, which involves a Palestinian state, has been a part of our understanding of how these two peoples, Israelis and Palestinians, would be able to live in peace and security going forward. So what we have now is a decision by, it will be about 151 states after the General Assembly is over, but 10 Western states probably recognizing Palestine in the next few weeks. What we have is an understanding that given the policies of the current Netanyahu government, expansion of settlements, the fastest and largest expansion of settlements in the West Bank since 1967 when the occupation began, the war in Gaza, the ground invasion in Gaza City, statements by senior cabinet ministers that they wanted to resettle Gaza. and actually a resolution in the Knesset that talked about annexing the West Bank. Given all of these factors, Western states said, "Wait a minute, we have to do something to try and send a signal, on the one hand to Israel and on the other hand to the Palestinians, that we continue to believe that two states is the way forward, the only way forward, frankly."
Okay, so a signal, as you say, but we've already heard Benjamin Netanyahu, and he says this recognition of a Palestinian state, all it does is, and this is his argument, rewards Hamas for the October 7 attack. And as I said earlier to Bob Bray, one of the goals for Hamas was to disrupt Israel's diplomatic relations by staging October 7. How is this not a win for Hamas?
Look, let's be absolutely clear. Every time somebody criticizes Prime Minister Netanyahu, he claims it is a benefit to the terrorists, it's a benefit to Hamas. First of all, the New York Declaration, which preceded these declarations on recognition, made it absolutely clear by the Western states that are recognizing Palestine now, but also by the Gulf states and the Arab states and the Palestinian Authority, that Hamas committed war crimes on October 7th, that Hamas is a terrorist group, that Hamas will not participate in elections within the year which Abbas has promised and which he has talked to various world leaders about. Hamas was never interested in a two-state solution, which recognition of Palestine is all about. Hamas either wanted one state from the river to the sea or a caliphate as part of its Muslim Brotherhood ideology. This is in no way a benefit to Hamas, which frankly is now an insurgency. It is not an army, military anymore. It's an insurgency that is able to continue to fight against Israel, as insurgencies do, whether Al-Qaeda or ISIS. But this does not represent any benefit to Hamas. It's aimed at the Palestinian Authority, at Mahmoud Abbas, at the moderates.
But how do you guarantee that Hamas is not involved? Perhaps it stays in the background. Perhaps it comes back in later elections. Perhaps it regroups and is everything Hamas except in name. How do you guarantee that this movement is not a part of an eventual Palestinian state?
You guarantee it in part by having the West, the UK, France, Canada, Australia, and others building up governance in the West Bank, ensuring that there are free and fair elections by providing advice, consultations, money, working towards transparency there, and running elections without Hamas as being a part. I am suggesting to you that, yes, Hamas is an insurgency, it's an ideology. I'm not suggesting that you're ever going to be able to destroy it or do away with it. But I can tell you right now that the polling that has been done in Gaza shows support for Hamas at being under 25%. Now, polling in the West Bank on Hamas is somewhat higher, but that's because you've got a corrupt and nepotistic government in place that hasn't been able to do much except help Israel by preventing terrorism from crossing the border, which they get no benefit from and no kudos from Prime Minister Netanyahu. Mm-hmm. So I'm fairly confident, and I think the leaders of our nations are fairly confident that Hamas is not going to play a role. The Gulf states do not want Hamas to play a role. They're not in favor of the Muslim Brotherhood or Hamas. Egypt and Jordan do not support Hamas. These are the countries during the day after when hopefully the IDF will have left that are going to come in and help restabilize the Gaza Strip. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants Hamas involved.
John, I have less than a minute, but I do want to ask this. The United States is not a part of this effort. It remains Israel's biggest funder and trading partner. Without the United States, how worthwhile is this support for an independent Palestine?
Look, Prime Minister Netanyahu is not going to be around forever. There's an election coming in October 2026, if not before, and it's unlikely that he will win. President Trump is not going to be around forever. He did negotiate he and Steve Witkoff were able to negotiate a ceasefire that lasted from January until March, and hostages were released. Had Prime Minister Netanyahu not canceled it, it could have continued. You're absolutely right. Without the United States, we're not going to see progress on the big picture. But what we may see is some of these countries, including Canada, begin to impose sanctions on Israel to try to continue to say, if not to Prime Minister Netanyahu, then to the electorate of Israel, you don't want to be living in a pariah state. You want to be living in the startup nation that you used to live in. So don't vote for Prime Minister Netanyahu. Vote for some opposition coalition that will bring stability and peace, economic stability and political stability back to Israel.
Jon Allen, as I say, always appreciate the time. Thank you for this.
Thanks so much. Appreciate being here.
Well, time now for a look at what else happened in politics today. On the matter of Gaza, NDP MP Jenny Kwan says the government needs to do more to get people out of the conflict zone. A family reunification plan to get loved ones onto Canadian soil hit its 5,000 applicant cap back in March. But since that time, less than 900 people have been admitted. The issues are security clearances, which Kwan says could be made easier if Canada followed the example of other countries and worked with NGOs on the ground.
There is no urgency from the government to take action. The government is not willing. There's zero political will to try and bring people to safety.
Over the weekend, the Minister of Public Safety accidentally told the truth, and he was recorded doing it. He said that the gun grab is not worth the money, that it will go over budget, and it would be better just to lock up the criminals, but that they're going ahead with the bad policy because it's good politics. Does the Prime Minister agree?
The Conservative leader zeroed in on the public safety minister in the Commons today, hitting Gary Anandasangri with a leaked audio recording first verified by the Toronto Star. In it, the minister criticizes his government's own gun buyback program, saying if he could, he would take a different approach, but the program, he says, is a priority for Quebec voters. The minister now says he was wrong to have made the comments.
In that conversation, Mr. Speaker, the subject of the assault-style firearms buyback compensation program was discussed. In trying to address this issue, Mr. Speaker, the individual's frustration, my comments were misguided.
Finally, forget 2015, it's now 2025, and Canada is still far from achieving gender parity in politics. Women hold only 30% of the seats in the House of Commons, and according to the Inter-Parliamentary Union, that ranks Canada in 71st place when it comes to gender representation. The group Informed Perspectives says it is time for all parties to address the issue, everything from constitutional changes to childcare, which other countries have implemented to get more women in politics. Well, Shari Graydon is with Informed Perspectives. Again, that is the group that held that news conference on the Hill today. And earlier, I asked her why Canada's ranking dropped to 71st.
What's behind the drop is not anything we're doing. It's what we're not doing, and it's what other countries are proactively, explicitly implementing policies to ensure that, because democracy is fundamentally about representation, that the 50% of the population who have been historically not present in decision-making bodies, other countries have rewritten their constitution, engaged in parliamentary or electoral reform. New Zealand went from first past the post like we have to representational democracy, and 138 countries around the world have implemented some form of gender quota to ensure that women hold a minimum number of seats.
And again, that is Shari Graydon. For the full conversation, check out our YouTube channel. Well, the International Civil Aviation Organization is a UN agency that's based in Montreal. Charged with promoting aviation safety, the agency facilitates international standards and cooperation. Now, starting tomorrow, ICAO will begin an assembly of member states, and ahead of that meeting, Liberal MP Judy Sgro and Conservative MP Michael Cooper are making a united appeal to have Taiwan participate in the assembly. That country is currently excluded because of the UN's One China policy.
A loud and clear message must be sent to ICAO. Stop placating the Beijing dictatorship, put global aviation safety first, and invite Taiwan to participate at the assembly. Taiwan belongs at ICAO.
Now, why should Canada care? Well, because the risks are not abstract. A conflict in the Taiwan Strait would severely disrupt global trade, including semiconductor supply chains, critical to Canada's economy. And this goes beyond economics. In 2023, a Chinese fighter dangerously intercepted a Canadian reconnaissance aircraft on a UN mission. That near miss reminds us, coercive airspace behavior has real consequences for all of us.
The plea comes as Taiwan routinely deals with Chinese military exercises taking place in their airspace and disrupting commercial air traffic, this according to Taiwanese officials. Now, earlier I did have the opportunity to speak with the Deputy Director General of Taiwan's Civil Aviation Administration. Here's a bit of what he had to say on efforts to have Taiwan participate in the ICAO assembly.
Since safety has no borders, and it's true, safety is global. And the Taipei FIR management over 1.6 million flights every day, each year, and that means every day there's over 1 million flights carried with passengers and vast cargo flight pass through the Taipei FIR. So I think by joining the ICAOs, Taiwan can share the safety data directly and access the secure portal, so we can receive in the real-time update, and that could allow us to better protect not only our flight, but the international passenger flies through our skies.
And again, the ICAO assembly begins tomorrow. We are watching it for you here on CPAC. Well, that is Primetime Politics for this Monday. I'm Michael Serapio. For everyone here at CPAC, thank you for watching. Primetime Politics is back again tomorrow evening. Until then, take care.